Would you please rise, join us in a moment of silence, and then the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Carlett.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Barrett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rivero.
Here.
Councilmember Ames.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Carlott. Here. And Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Okay. Let the budget follies continue.
Let the budget begin again, or continue. Good morning, everyone, and we're real happy that we're here this morning. Appreciate the time that the council is putting into the budget. We have really three general areas that we want to address this morning. The first is some discussion of special events funding for the year ahead in the city. The second is utility rates, and this, of course, is an important feature of the budget, is setting the utility rates for the year ahead. And then finally, it's the budget wrap-up time. Any lingering questions that council members have or any final direction that you want to provide to the staff regarding the budget is had in that final wrap-up session. So that's the outline for the day, just those three major areas. So before I turn it over to Jeff, just a little bit on special events. This is a subject that council members and staff have identified over really the past few years as, I think, needing greater definition in terms of what we have in the budget and what the council's expectations are for the various events. And I think it's real important to have that alignment, and that is the clarity of the council's expectation on special events with the appropriate amount of money budgeted so that we can be sure to meet your expectations. So that's what this section of the session is about. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Great. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. We're very excited to speak to this topic as well. For Peoria, the signature special events that we have done have been, we think, very effective as helping to establish an identity for our city, as well as really proving to serve as a unifying force for our community. So we're very excited about the special events programs that we have here at the city, and we also appreciate the city council's support over the last several years, even during the economic downturn, as we were able to continue supporting these very high-profile, highly successive special event programs. So with that, here's some of the agenda that we have today. First off, what we will want to go through is a little bit of talk about the event characteristics that we have here, and the different types of special events that we undertake here at the City of Peoria, and we'll give some definitions really to classify those. Hopefully will help us as we go through some of the budget discussions. From then, we will then go into some of the locations that we place these and give you a kind of a larger visual glimpse of where these events occur within the city. And some of the larger events are at very specific venues, as we'll see. Some of the smaller civic and community events are more interspersed, so we can talk a little bit about that dynamic. From there, we'd like to do our own environmental scan. In other words, talk about events in Peoria, some of the challenges, some of the successes, some of the things that we have going for us within undertaking special events in our community and in our city. And then lastly, I wanted to go back to some of the funding considerations. As Carl had mentioned, we'll be seeking your guidance as well as far as the direction on how you would allocate, especially the one-time dollars that we have available to undertaking special events in the future. And we'll also be recommending an approach for how we budget these going forward, just to help ensure some clarity, as Carl had mentioned, on how we undertake these special events. So with that, I will be passing it over to our MC, our Community Services Director, John Sefton, who will lead us through much of the discussion.
Well, good morning, Mayor, Council. Thank you, Jeff. I also want to kind of start this recognizing our staff that put their hard work into executing the events, planning, designing, delivering the quality events that Peoria has become really known for. And as mentioned earlier in the previous sessions of the budget, the fact that Peoria has held on to the signature events and the community events is really a testament to your leadership and the discipline of the staff to be able to do this. So it's really something positive for the community. And with that, we think about, and we've talked about this in previous years, we think about how community events really impact everyone within the community, and promoting that sense of community, something that might not be tangible but really important. And I know that each of you have been to special events and recognize that when people come together, whether for the recreational and play, the historical significance, the way that we celebrate our culture, celebrate the arts like we did last weekend, promoting an awareness. We have so many different ways of recognizing what an event can do and heighten an awareness. And then that can be a heightened awareness of the city itself or specific causes. We also recognize that putting on events and making an investment in events helps to promote the economy, whether it be creating those destination experiences, connecting and collaborating with businesses, and then also creating a reason for community development. So what goes into an event? A lot of planning, a lot of logistics, and a lot of detail. Peoria has really excelled at establishing a team and a process to be able to deliver effective community events as well as large-scale signature events, and as well as partnering with promoters and outside entities that help us to deliver that experience. So with that, we think about city involvement, and what we've done this year is to try to identify our large, our medium-sized, and our outside supported events. City signature events, as provided in information previously, are really defined as those distinguishing themes, community recognition, long-standing events, and even those that attract a targeted audience and a sizable audience as well. Our city community events are smaller in size, more local, more specific. They don't necessarily include a niche, but they might as well have a real focus as far as a neighborhood or a discipline within the community, but still attracting citizens of all ages and likes. And then we have our promoter-sponsored events. These will be outside businesses using city property, private property, or others, but requiring the services, the support services of the city, whether that be through police, traffic, special events, the permitting process, et cetera. You see a number of those circumstances where there might be alcohol permits involved. They come across your dais as well. So with that, we also recognize that we'll have some new events coming up, so we'll talk about that. An example, here's a listing of our city signature events, all of which have had major impact in the community over the past several years. Note here that P83 Party, while still funded as a one-time, is a signature event due to its scale, complexity, the entertainment value, the purpose behind identifying the P83 district, and the like. Here's an example. We've got a handful more than this list, but an example of the type of community events. We had a great opportunity to kick off the new year with the Polar Plunge, and still go out and celebrate a number of different, the library Cinco de Mayo, celebrate the Irish heritage with the Get Your Leprechaun On. These are the types of community events that, again, have a great impact and enjoyable settings. This example, list of examples, includes those promoter-produced events that the city, in one way or another, whether it be venue or other locations, have a pretty significant support to those events that promoters come in and utilize our community assets. I don't want to leave without having a map. So this location is our signature events. You'll note that the primary locations, and due to that venue, the important venue, the site of the event itself, we are primarily focusing have focused our signature events at these two locations at the sports complex as well as Old Town. But when I step back and I look further at maps and recognize a little bit broader, our community events are truly scattered across the community, reaching further into the north due to the different types of venues that we have available. And these aren't all city-sponsored. We definitely have a lot of support from outside organizations and some of those promoters as well. And this promoter event even gets broader. So we'll wrap in the lake here and recognize that again, the city still has a level of support in each of these different promoter-sponsored events. However, these are where the private sector is stepping in to help fill some of those niches with great quality activities. Just again, the little green shading there, one of those data perspectives that I've asked about is, where do our people live? The green really helps to identify it's the population density, and definitely difficult to look at in any level of detail with this graphic, but it's one of those dynamics that we help to identify.
Good question.
John, if I might, you've got all of the events that the Vistancia community puts on through their, they've got an event planner, a community event planner and we're really not even involved in those. Why are they all on this list?
Absolutely. These are, again, are the promoter events that we recognize that are going on within the community. They are not all connected to.
But the city, no one else in the city is invited to those besides the Vistancia community because they're done internally there, right? I mean, not that I know of. Is that true?
I don't know.
Yeah, those are just internal.
From an
events.
analysis standpoint, but they still recognize that they're serving Peoria residents. So while they might be exclusive to them, and this isn't intended to sway or misrepresent, but it is looking at where people are, what types of events are going on. We recognize that Vistancia and a number of other community groups, homeowners associations, churches are also putting on events. The goal here with this slide was just to recognize that there's a lot that goes on. Peoria is an active place, and that we recognize the promoter-sponsored events in a way. And again, it's data. It's a representation to help show. So, do I make my?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me add to that, Councilmember Carlett. There's no question that reflecting back on the discussion of balance and equity across the city, there's absolutely no question that we need to create, identify, fund more events in the northern part of the city. So this slide is in no way to take away from that important reality. We absolutely believe in that.
It does kind of misrepresent what we as a city are doing.
Yeah, their goal here, as John was outlining, was just to sort of tally up the different things out there, not to give an impression that the city was sponsoring the necessary events that we need to sponsor up north. We do need to do that.
Okay, and a couple slides back, there was, I think, community events.
I pulled that up here. This
back.
is the community
Did you
event. I
know
took a
was
step
gonna go
back.
there? Yeah, the C10, what is it, 10 and 18? Household hazardous waste drop-off and pharmaceutical drop-off site. I'm just thinking that might also be something we can alleviate from this map. It's not really an event.
No doubt. No, again, and it's we struggle with, and we went through a dry run of this yesterday, and we struggle with some of the definitional elements of events and activities in the various categories. So again, I'm glad you're pointing that out. By no means are they trying to suggest that those are community events of a celebratory nature, but by no means are they. And we do need to create those events in the northern part of the city.
Right,
You bet.
and I would like to echo that. We did struggle with that very item. The general thought was, as John had mentioned, is there's a few reasons we undertake these different types of events, and some of those is to create an awareness. And so for that reason, we opted to show it, knowing that indeed there was more recommendations coming.
And then we also have many departments that are putting efforts towards activities, and it is promoting the awareness of the necessary and the very importance of pharmaceutical and hazardous waste drop-off. So whether the different departments throughout the city are creating days, points, locations, and dedicating resources to making sure that the message is out and that they are, while it's not a celebration, it's definitely an opportunity to help heighten awareness.
And since we are having this conversation, I would like to say that we've had each one of those once in the lifetime of the northern part of the city, and I was told we aren't going to have them again. So I would like to have them again, not exactly as a, community event, but I think that it would be nice if they could stay on there for the purposes of us having them again.
And we certainly agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll take a scan, and to your point, one of our challenges right now is a venue in the north. One of the most important elements of a special event of the type that you're talking about is really the venue. The physical venue truly dictates the type of activities that can be offered, how an event will flow or function, as well as it sets the base for establishing public safety. Marketing, always a challenge when we're introducing new activities. Each event requires a different approach, a different level of investment, whether we have the opportunity to partner with other groups like we did last week with the Unified School District. Marketing is an important element of every event that we put on. To a degree, we're somewhat of a victim of our success. Peoria has done an excellent job at heightening the awareness and the attendance and the level of activity at each of the programs and events. But with that, as events continue to grow, the necessary support and financial commitment increases. Our recommendations moving forward as a supplemental request do address this issue. Determining responsibility. As the city identifies partners, whether it be not-for-profits or outside promoters or others, it's critical to identify what roles and responsibilities are held for that event. City resources continue to be stretched. This is a concern. The special events team has actually lost staff over the past several years. So in order to make sure that we have a safe, effective event, it's important to make sure that we identify who's responsible early on and what those responsibilities are. As I mentioned, staff resources continue to be stretched. Peoria's special event permitting process helps the entire city to come together from public safety, streets, transportation, community services as well, to provide guidance and support to promoters and event planners, again, to ensure that the events go off without a hitch. But I do want to make a point that it takes time and energy, as we all know, to put these activities together, and that the community resources staff have been limited. And with that, we really focus on partnerships. Great events are the result of strong partnerships. This is demonstrated by our success with the P83 party and our partnership with Carrie Dunn and Our Entertainment. It was also demonstrated by last weekend's partnership with the Peoria Unified School District with the Arts and Cultural Festival. Our current partnerships include philanthropic groups. Local activities are also being supported and augmented by our partners, Arizona Broadway Theater, as well as TheaterWorks. We partner with the Maricopa County up at the lake, and of course we have the Diamond Club, who helps to support a number of different types of community events at the sports complex. Building these relationships takes energy, commitment, and time. Timing and preparation that goes into an event. Obviously, the scale and the complexity of an event really dictates how much time it's going to take to put it together. The Arts and Cultural Festival took over a year, whereas a health and safety fair might take 6 months. So it's just a matter of recognizing and setting off early what the expectations are for that scale and complexity of an event. And finally, we'll get to funding. Each event really cannot be done on the cheap. There's planning, marketing, supplies, logistics, entertainment, and the support necessary really requires a scaled investment. So putting that all together, events as they gain in popularity, the opportunity for sponsorships, partnerships continue to grow. But sort of measuring on an ongoing basis where our opportunities exist. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff, who will get a little deeper into the funding considerations.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So as John had mentioned, each one of these special events has its own unique way of helping to support it and finance and structure it. And as a result of that, the funding for these special events can get a little complex, just to say the least. So one of the items that we did provide as a staff, if you do have a copy, and if not, we have extra copies, would be just this breakdown of special events by the three categories that John had talked about, which list out the estimated attendance, the amount of ongoing ongoing or estimated one-time cost for those items, revenue offsets, as well as an estimate of what the in-kind support is. So that's just kind of a reference for you. That said, what I'd like to do is try and walk you through how we approach budgeting for these special events from year to year. And then again, as we had mentioned, we'll try and, we're thinking of a recommendation of how we might approach that to kind of clarify that going forward. So first off, the signature and community events that we had discussed, with the exception of P83, which has been a one-time budgeted item, all of those items that you see on your list, including the Memorial Easter Egg Hunt, the Halloween Munster Bash, July 4th, the Holiday Festival, and the like, and the Arts and Cultural Festival, all of those have ongoing funding supported. They've identified about $376,000 between those signature and community events. That does not include the two FTE that we have on staff, for example, in community services to support that. So this is to help support the supplies, the food, the entertainment, the advertising, and the like related to those specific events. Now, of that, there is about $165,000 that we receive in revenue offsets. In other words, revenue we receive from concessions, advertising, and the like. And then ultimately, about a little more than $40,000 of in-kind support is provided within your department budgets to help support these events. So examples of that could be the public safety presence that you have at these events, helping with garbage and traffic management and items like that. So in general, the signature and community events are identified. The ongoing budget is placed in here and is recommended as such. The promoter-produced events, they're really budgeted on a case-by-case basis. It really depends on what is the city's involvement in that. Are they sponsoring the event? Are they supporting the event? So each one of those is unique. Sometimes they are supported through district funds, or during the year there might be a budget amendment to help support an event that has surfaced. And then in addition, there is in-kind support within department budgets as well for the same types of things that we had mentioned, where there is a request for police or fire service or support, garbage and traffic management, barricading, and the like. Sometimes those are reimbursable costs. So in the arrangement, again, as we look at our involvement with these different types of promoter-produced events, in instances we will be reimbursed for some of that activity. So as we approach this year's budget, the signature events and any of the community events that have the ongoing funding, they are included in the budget that is before you. However, for the one-time items, we were looking to seek your guidance in assisting us with what would be your priorities for staging special events with the one-time funding we had. As Ms. Gregory had mentioned in our first session, we had identified tentatively $200,000 of one-time funding to help support one-time events for the upcoming fiscal year.
I have a question. Can you go back to the previous slide,
Absolutely.
please? Yeah. That 165,000 revenue offset, is that associated with a particular event like 4th of July or?
Councilmember, there's several events. There's a revenue, and you can see on your sheet, we tried to isolate those out so that you'll see for the 4th of July, for example, that there is about a $99,000 offset just for that item. $25,000 for the Halloween Munster Bash, another $25,000 for Dolly Sanchez. So all of those all told estimate about $165 of a revenue offset. So here quickly is a list of what we have budgeted for ongoing funded. It is included in the budget you have for our signature and community events for the upcoming year. If there's any questions on these should be all items that you had seen in the past. They have been approved, and these are generally continuing as such at the same level and same type of quality performance that we provide to those. In regard to one-time funding, as we had mentioned, we have set aside $200,000 for one-time events. Here are just some examples of types of events that we could take. These are not staff recommendations, but just recognition of different types of events that we've either had in the past or that we could see could be helpful going forward. If I may, John, maybe you can kind of explain these quickly of the types of events we're talking about.
Right, and we all know the P83 party. The chess simul is a celebrity chess player who has the ability to play simultaneously many players. And a great opportunity to bring a unique event to Peoria. We've identified just over $40,000 for a northern Peoria event, We continue to work with property managers and event venues in the northern section of town to be able to put this event together with a goal of something as early as this fall. Fiestas, we've got capacity, Keep It Safe, and the Sustainability Film Series. Again, these costs are net costs, so we're recognizing that these would be the total investment. We do expect to have partnerships on nearly all of them to help to get to these numbers.
So you're taking the partnership cost out already, estimating?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. This is the net cost. One thing that we did want to mention is as we, as a city, decide on allocating these dollars, a couple things to keep in mind is that we are interested as a city staff in making sure that we budget those and isolate those costs so that you know exactly what was the budgeted amount for these events, and then we will make sure to look to do a full reconciliation of how that budget was addressed versus what actually was expended in those specific items. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne. For Fiesta Patrias, how did you come up with the 40,000, or Mr. Septon?
Do you want me to? And I'll probably pass it very shortly over. This is an estimated full cost of $50,000 was a place mark, and then anticipating about $10,000 of a revenue offset for that event. Is that
correct? So, and that's bottom line, recognizing that 10,000 might even be shy, but a lot of those costs could go into additional sponsorships. And similar to the event last year, there was a number of other partnerships in place to execute that event.
Okay. I'm not I just need some clarification. So, the 40, are you asking for 40,000 for the Fiestas?
No, I appreciate your question. The city staff is not putting forward any of these as recommendations. This is giving you a sense of scope of how much some of these events would cost if they were undertaken by the city. We're actually seeking the council's guidance on how they would like to allocate the $200,000 that we have set aside one time for such events.
Mr.
Jeff or John, for the P83, what do we do? How do we move forward to take it from a one-time funding and putting it into ongoing?
That would be a council decision, and in fact, this is where we believe would be the perfect venue for that, is in the budget processes, to talk about if there is an interest in making that an ongoing funding. I think Ms. Gregory would quickly tell us that for every dollar in means that there's another dollar, but we'll have to make a decision of either out or a new revenue source for that.
Yep, if I might just add a little bit of that, Councilmember Edwards, I think as we've discussed in some of the financial overview information, right now as the budget sits, it's very tight for additional ongoing expenditures. An expression of interest from the council that in the future you'd like it to become ongoing would be important, though, and as ongoing funds become identified either across this year or in next year's budget, we would know that it's a priority for the council to, for the staff to calculate it into the ongoing expenditures going forward. So if that's helpful.
It does, and I think we'll definitely take a look at it for 15. I'd like to move it into the ongoing because it is an event that is growing, and it's going to be in its third year. So I think it's something we've committed to. And with the development of PD3 moving forward, I think we need to stick with this.
Ms. Carlin?
Thanks. I need some clarification on Fiestas Patrias. I don't have it on my list unless it's called something else. Is it the Old Town Holiday Festival now? No, is it the Peoria Arts and Cultural Festival now?
If I may, the Fiestas Patrias in the last few years has not been undertaken by the city. It has been undertaken by an outside promoter. You can see some of the city contribution in the promoter-produced events category. So we can, if you go Alpha within promoter-produced events, and you'll see some of a small one-time amount and in-kind contribution for that event in the prior year.
Okay, so are you referring to Fiesta Peoria and the in-kind amount of $28,677?
I don't see the Fiesta Peoria. I see an amount of $7,500 one time and in-kind support of $12,248.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have your original data sheet that you gave me.
I apologize.
And Katie's bringing me something new. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't able to print that out. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, but you're listing it as 40,000.
Yes, and the reason for that is that in the last year or two, when the outside promoter undertook that event, they also assumed all of the other costs and the revenue stream with that. That was not a city-sponsored event. Should it be a city-sponsored event, this is what we believe would be the net cost for that event.
Okay.
I can make a clarification.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tyne. Councilwoman Carlott, that was the question I asked. The event last year, the city didn't pay $40,000 for the event. I think what you're saying is if the city were to take on this event, that's what it would cost.
Okay, and that's a net cost?
Yes. Yes. So I just want to make that clarification.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I had one other question with regards to the chess championship, which I think is a really great event. Were we able to have that event last year? Why weren't we able to have that?
Councilmember Carlott, we were not. I understand there was some logistics challenges as well as financial issues. So it was not put together. It's been in the design and the concept. So there was not a date selected. But the goal is to we have the resources in order to put everything together and to be able to offer the unique event.
Was that, was the financial issues with us, with the city,
No,
or with the
no.
coordination of those people?
Correct.
Okay.
Those were outside of the city resources. So again, the challenge of logistics, the sponsorships and other things were not put together and in time to do previously. But it has, again, been simply postponed. Our goal is to be able to offer this unique event.
Okay, and I appreciate that event, and I think it's a great marketable event, and yet a small amount of attendance happens with that event and is expected to happen, and that brings the net cost to $4.80 per person. You know, if you kind of take these as estimated attendance and divide it by the net cost, it's very high, very, very high. And we might want to consider looking at these events in that way. If we need to weed any of them out for the sake, just strictly financially, we might want to take it as a per-person kind of expense.
And we are definitively looking for your direction on that.
Thanks.
I have a couple, I'm sorry, I had to step out and take a phone call from work. I have a couple of questions. Is this funding in the budget right now for these one-time events?
Yeah, a great question. Just so you're aware, I'm going to go a slide back, Mayor. The ongoing funding is included in the budget for all of these signature events that you're familiar. The one-time, these are just examples of types of events, but what the city has set aside $200,000 of one-time money for events like this. This is not a staff recommendation. We're seeking your guidance.
Okay. Two things here. This is for the council. Do we want to try to determine what we want to keep now and what we want to remove during the budget session? Or should we just approve a number for the budget so we can move on with the budget and have a study session where we can drill down on these issues and make the decisions which ones we're going to hold on to and which ones we're going to let go, or else which ones we're going to leave as promoter sponsored, and which ones we're going to leave as city sponsored. So it's up to you guys.
Isn't this close to 200,000?
Mayor, my recommendation would be I would like to have that discussion now because some of these events I'm already working on.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just don't know how we would actually come up with a budget number if we don't figure it out.
Okay, that's fine. I have one other suggestion and one other comment to make, or two more. Number one, I'm appalled by the amount of, it's almost $200,000 in in-kind contributions last year, if I'm reading this correctly. I would suggest that the council adopt a policy that if any event exceeds in terms of in-kind contributions, if it exceeds $1,000 or $2,000, the promoter must pay for it, must pay us back. If you look at this, and I'm not picking on any particular event, the one for Fox last year, $23,000 came out of the police overtime budget for that event. And we're sitting around complaining about overtime for fire and police. We're some of the biggest abusers here. So what we ought to do is say, okay, the promoter comes in, he wants to have an event, anything exceeding, any in-kind contribution from the city exceeding, pick a number, 1,000, 2,000, 2,500, whatever you want, then the promoter must pay that difference after the event. That would be my recommendation. Because it's almost $200,000. that the council never approved.
Didn't we approve in the budget, the individual budgets, though?
Right. Mayor and
Yeah.
Council,
I think we did, because it's estimated there.
should mention, there is a set amount in budgets, in department budgets for in-kind. In any given year, there is always a challenge in making sure that we understand what the events are in that year and how to deploy your resources for that. So I think to the mayor's point, it helps us quite a bit as staff if we have good knowledge of what these events are so that we can program accordingly and let you know if there will be some budgetary difficulties.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just saying that you said we hadn't voted on it in the budget, but it is in the budget. It's kind of, yeah.
Well, it's in the overtime budget for police, but is that the best expenditure of overtime for the police?
That's a good point, but I would.
So it seems to me that in a situation like that, and go through and look at the in-kind contributions for all the events, mostly the promoter events, and they're high. Why not have the promoter pay the cost of having his event in the city? And I would suggest that we adopt some kind of a policy that says, if you're going to use the auspices of the city in any way and you're a promoter, that you have to pay whatever the in-kind cost is after the event, or you don't get to come and work in Peoria anymore. So we can recover these costs. Mr. Rivera.
A couple questions here. For Fiesta Peoria, what was the cost of the in-kind from the city, the event itself?
Councilmember, I'll get you that detail. We do actually get a breakdown of where that in-kind cost came for that. Excuse me one second. Thanks. And right here. So if I show it correctly, and bear with me, about 4,800 from police service, primarily the public safety presence at the Fiesta Peoria event, 4,900 for emergency management response through the fire department, approximately $750 for facility support and facility rental, another $700, $200 for permit fees, fire permit fees, street barricading assistance, $500 from the streets division, and about $335 worth of support just from the community services department and logistics and
For a
planning.
total of what?
I believe, excuse me?
You showed
Go ahead.
12,248.
Yes, 12,248, thank you.
Right. The comment that I want to make, Mayor, when we're talking about promoters, for that event, I'm the promoter. Not looking to make money. I raise a lot of money from sponsors, and I think the city's contribution is very small compared to the benefit and the amount of money that I was able to raise for Fiesta Peoria.
And I'm not going to argue with that at all, except that was an expense from the city that was never approved by the council.
Okay. I thought in my conversations with their city manager, one of my goals was using district funds and repaying the city back. And I thought I had paid most of the expenses back.
Yeah, my understanding, your goal going into that, Vice Mayor Rivera, was to cover the cost of the event by sponsorships primarily, and if there was expenditures beyond contributions, that you were paying for that through your district funds.
Yep.
And I believe that's what occurred. I don't have the revenue data, but they're nodding. So that is what occurred with respect to that event.
And Mayor, leading to the conversation, what I was trying to tell you earlier was, I have two events that I'm organizing and leading. What I would like the city to do is sponsor the in-kind stuff, police and the fire, minimal cost for the event, the trash, the custodians, and I'll take on the effort of raising the money to pay close to 90% of the event. And I get your point that it's not budgeted. That's one of the reasons I've been talking to our city manager, where I would like to budget for the Cinco de Mayo, for the Fiesta Peoria, the in-kind support from the city, police, fire, trash, the basic services, and through partnerships in the community, through sponsors, I'll be able to cover the rest of the cost. I think it's a win-win for the city when you have somebody, or a council member, working hard through sponsors, picking up close to 90% of the cost for an event.
Well, sure missed the 90% with Fiesta Peoria.
Well,
Not to mention the 23,000 for the Fox.
okay. The Fiesta Peoria was an event that cost close to $80,000. Okay.
Okay,
And that money I raised to the private sponsors.
okay.
Now, I have a question for our chief in regards to the 23,000, if you could come up. Chief, I just want to, my question is, what was the $23,000 about?
Mayor and council, the majority of that was overtime expenditure for providing 24/7 security coverage for Mr. Fox while he was here in town.
Okay. I was told that part of that was training.
Training?
Training for the security detail?
I don't believe there was training involved. I'll check with our SWAT personnel, but I don't believe there's training involved for that.
Okay. So what I wanted to bring up forward, Mayor, is for the Cinco de Mayo and the Fiesta of Peoria, the support from the city in covering police, fire, and the basic needs for the event. And through a committee that I've organized and the community, we'll pick up the costs and covering the expenses for the music, entertainment, flyers, and everything else.
What's the rest of the council think? I mean, the big cost is in the in-kind contribution from the city.
I don't know. It's strange. It seems like an exception to our overall policy, our overall way of functioning. So, I'm not sure what to do about that. It is an expense. Is it, the issue that we have, in my mind, is that we have a total inequity of these expenses in this realm being spent throughout our city. So now we're going to take even more expenses and put them in the same area. And I get that you're doing a lot of the work on your own. That's not an issue. I guess the issue is the part that's not being covered. It just goes back into our budget and part of the inequity again, in my mind.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Rivera. I want to do the same thing with the P83 event. Not that the staff hasn't done a good job, but promotion is just not their expertise. And I really would think, in talking with Carrie Dunn and a couple other promoters, I think that I would like to take the P83 event on as well and let the promoter run with it. And like the Vice Mayor was saying, is to have fire and police pick up the coverage of that, but go out to private donations for the remainder of it.
Because it's not just those. I mean, the 3rd of July fireworks up
Agreed.
at the lake, we have large in-kind contributions. It's not even a Peoria-sponsored event. Why are we paying these kinds of dollars for events that we're not sponsoring? And that's the question.
Maybe
Mr.
we
A?
should be
Yeah, I have
sponsoring
a
it.
quick question here. I want to estimated net costs. Now, the in-kind are not included in that. Are they in the net cost, or they are?
Mayor and Council, the in-kind contribution is not.
They're not included in that. Okay, that's on the separate, yeah.
We do have the ability to track those in-kind costs, and should you see fit, we would be prepared to identify those individual program codes within our budgets.
Because what I'm talking about is the 3rd of July celebration up at the lake, $8,547. It's not ours.
And may I say, if we partnered with the county on that event, we could make it ours. It's our lake, and I think that we should celebrate that. It's the day before our celebration. Why don't we take that one on? It already has a partner in it. Put some money into it, make it one of our signature events. We don't do anything at the lake that our lake. So maybe that's one of the things that we should do, is put some money into that event. Move it on up the list.
Anybody else?
What do you guys think of that?
I'm okay with that.
Well, then, I assume most of that 8,500 for the 3rd of July was borne by the Maricopa Water District. And probably maybe some from the county for the fireworks themselves. Because that's
Or
a
our fire
private
department.
shooting. All we're doing is providing police.
Right, Mayor and
If we want
Council,
to pick it up, it's going
that's
to be more than
correct.
8,500, because now we're going to have to pay for the fireworks.
Is that correct? Is that our fire department that's already out there?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is just the cost for the in-kind support for our police and fire for that event. It does not
Traffic
include
control.
any of the other costs from the other jurisdictions.
It's mostly traffic control up around the lake.
Okay.
Mr. Mr. Ames?
Yeah, I think if we have a good event and county and others are paying, that, why do we have to pay? Our citizens can go there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they charge for admission,
Right.
and
And that's part of the offset,
Right.
yeah.
we're paying $8,500 for them to do that.
But we'd pay more if we took it over.
We would pay more if we
Quite a
took it
bit
over.
more, okay.
Yeah, we don't really need anything at the lake. Yeah,
No,
I mean, who
well,
cares
it's already,
if anyone
it's
knows
already,
that's in Peoria?
it's already there.
Yeah.
It's already there.
No, I'm just pointing this out because essentially, the budget we're showing here is $200,000 for events, and you have another $200,000 in kind. And that's kind of out of balance. I'm having problems with that. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, and I think that point is really the staff's point. We want to be clear, and I think we all, the council and staff need to be clear on what events are a priority for the council and what the cost of those events are. So, however you all determine the right mix of events, then we want to make sure that we attach the appropriate budget to those events so that we're not in a situation where there's misalignment with respect to the council's expectations and what we have in the budget.
But the mayor is saying we don't see the in-kind cost here.
Yeah, I don't think that's determined until after the event, is that correct?
Well, it can
Mayor
be
and council,
estimated.
we try to estimate what that in-kind cost would be to make sure that we are able to support it within our department budgets. But yes, we would, after the event, we do a debrief to see about what was required for that. And of course, we look at those budgets and see how they're impacted.
And you can do estimates particularly because we have history at these events.
Yes, sir.
Right, where events have occurred in the past, or there are similar events, we can do a pretty good job, quite a good job, really, of estimating the in-kind costs. And then we always do a reconciliation after the event so that we know how much it cost, kind of a debrief at the end. How much did it cost? What were the issues that, if it's repeated, we need to address? What went well? What was the revenue? Did we get the revenue that we expected? Did the sponsors come through with their commitments? And that's not always the case. Usually they're good, but there are times when we have to go through that accounting and we find that there are things that didn't pan out the way we thought they would. So we always do that after action summary. And maybe that's something we should share with the council after each event. So there's clarity about what we expected the event to cost, and then ultimately if there were any surprises with respect to in-kind or failures of sponsors to come through or what have you.
I would recommend that when you do the hot wash, which is what we call it, you figure out what went right, what went wrong, what the costs were, what the true costs were, estimated versus true costs, that you send that information to the council after every time,
Good.
after every event.
Yeah, we'd like to do. I think that would help with this, what I call alignment piece, yeah.
Mr. Patena?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious, is it possible or is it even legal if where you have deep involvement with council people like in P83 or Fiestas Patrias, where the city could pick up those in-kind costs, but when there's just a promoter involved, I understand what you're saying about the exorbitant cost for that. Maybe they could just charge the promoter after a certain amount of dollars. You have a significant amount of input from your council people raising and getting sponsorship, so maybe we could make an exception to that.
The point I was trying to make is I want everybody to be cognizant of what it is we're paying. Whether or not the city pays for anything or not, or whether you want to let it go as it is fine. I'm not arguing that we get rid of or save or add anything here. I just want everybody to understand that we're showing $200,000 in the budget, but the true cost of this is $400,000. Now, they can build it into their department budgets, but it's still money that's being expended by the city.
Well, that's true.
Mr. Rivera?
And I agree with you, Mayor. That's why I don't know if it's appropriate to have this conversation here, but in regards to Fiesta Peoria, as I mentioned, as a council member who was leading the effort to make that event happen, you have a close to an $80,000 event costing the city $12,000. I know with all the events put together, it's a large amount, but I think there's a benefit for a city-sponsored event led by a council member, if it's either me or anyone on this council, who is putting on an event that's going to cost $70,000, $80,000, and the city picks up $8,000 to $10,000.
And I don't have any problem with that, but we didn't know we were picking up $8,000 to $10,000.
Okay.
That's where I have a problem.
And that's fine, and I've had this conversation with the city manager. I told him this is something that I wanted to discuss during the budget for Fiesta Peoria and the Cinco de Mayo. My goal is having the city pick up those minimal costs, and I'll do the rest of the fundraising.
And I don't have any problem with that, but as long as we know in advance that we're paying these costs.
Yes.
What irritates me is I pick this up, and we've paid $200,000 in in-kind costs for a variety of events, some of which we have nothing to do with. That bothers me.
Okay. Agree with you. And on another note, in regards to Vicente Fox, and I'll have this conversation in detail with you, Mr. Manager, because I'm working on an event for September 12th, and it's going to be a dinner. I don't know the location yet. I've been talking to Kyle about it, but the purpose of the dinner is to continue the dialogue about economic development, trade, and commerce with our southern border, southern neighbor. And I've invited Vicente Fox and potentially another president from another country, and they're going to be returning, but I don't want the city to pick up the costs. They're dignitaries, but if there's a concern about the $23,000, I'll raise that money on my own or work something else out.
James?
Yeah, Fiestas, we see 40,000 there, but Councilman Rivero, you said you're going to raise 80,000?
Well, the 40,000, I think what it is that's if staff takes over the event, it's going to cost 40,000.
Oh. Well, you're not recommending?
No, I'm not recommending that.
Okay.
What I'm recommending is for both Cinco de Mayo and Fiesta Peoria for the city to pick up the basic costs, police, fire, trash.
Okay. So this 40,000 comes off here, right?
Yeah, a good portion of it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I think if we got council members, and we have a couple here who are particularly good at that, and they like getting involved in that as one of their council activities, I think we should help support that, and rather than spend 40,000, we might look at some in kind, maybe a different differential than it's just a straight outside promoter.
Right. Anybody else? What about things like the 3rd of July?
Well, we have a partnership with the county.
We can
right?
go up and down this list and talk
That's
about
not
each
on
one
here.
that the city doesn't sponsor. And I guess my question is pretty simple, I guess, and my suggested solution is, except for city ones where the city's actually involved through Mr. Rivera or through Mr. Edwards, do we want to continue to subsidize some of these other activities that are just promoters? For example, the 3rd of July up at the lake. It's done by Maricopa Water District, and it's done by the commercial side of the lake. They charge admission, and I don't know if the county helps or not. We're paying $8,500 for traffic control. We get nothing for it, and it's not even talked about as a city function.
I think if it's not a city function, we shouldn't be paying anything. I do.
That's my
I think
question.
that's true. And I would also, along those same lines, like to suggest that we, as part of the budget discussions, let alone contract discussions, that we know how much of overtime and police and fire regular time expenses are being included for these. I'd like that to be part of the conversation at all times.
Yeah, my solution for those, let's exclude the city stuff. And I'm not talking about the major ones that we do, like the Halloween bash and the rest of them. But why don't we set an amount of in-kind contribution, and anything over that, they must pay. For example, if we say $2,000, okay, then the water district up there has to come back and cut us a check for $6,500. I'm not saying we shouldn't cooperate with them and do traffic control, because otherwise they're at the mercy of the county sheriff's department. But why are we paying this? We should recoup some of that money. So, I'm saying set a minimum standard. We'll go X amount of dollars for in-kind contributions, and anything above that, you have to take out of your profits and pay us back.
Or, if I might, with regards to that particular one, maybe we can make a deal with them where all of the marketing and promotional materials have our name on them. And that can be the difference.
That's a
between
good
in-kind.
idea, kind of more of a co-sponsorship,
Yeah.
with them taking the lead.
Well, and
And
our
the
name.
cost.
I mean, really, it's about making that lake known as a Peoria entity.
Right.
And we're missing that opportunity.
And Councilmember Carlott, another idea would be having some City of Peoria perspective in the event, beyond just a logo, beyond just
You
marketing.
mean actually participating in the event?
Yes.
Right, which is what I just
Okay.
suggested, and everyone didn't like that idea. For some reason, we don't like our lake, I guess. I really feel that we don't do anything to make that lake the City of Peoria's lake.
No, I think that's a good idea. I thought you were saying we should totally take over the event. and,
No, I didn't
okay,
say
I'm
that. I
sorry.
said we should partner with them, and there's a
Right.
number of other opportunities to partner with them at the lake.
And that one's not on the list here, right?
It's in promoter, it's under
It's on
promoter,
this list. The 3rd of July.
Oh, okay.
it's under somebody else
But
doing it.
not the
Section.
one-time funding we're looking for, or it could be? Okay, these are just some initial suggestions. Okay.
Yeah, these are examples in the.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to go back to my original question. Do we want to sit here well, first of all, do we want to establish a maximum that we are going to pay, quote unquote, to non-city sponsored events
Or
for
not.
in-kind contributions?
I think it's a good idea.
I'm fine with that.
What kind of a number would you guys want to talk about? 1,000, 2,000, 2,500?
Mayor, I want to clarify, but this is for outside the events that we're talking
Things the
about.
city doesn't have anything to do with, such as the 3rd of July. And I'm not necessarily
Okay.
picking on them either.
And
I know
yet you
most
are,
of those guys.
really.
Yeah, well, they're not going to like me even more later.
Well, yeah, but our citizens particularly in the north, go there, right, to that event?
I'll bet
They
a
do very
lot
well.
of citizens from a lot of different areas go there.
They draw a lot.
They do. It's a huge, huge
Yeah,
event.
I know.
I mean, even
I tried to
CAP
get there, I couldn't
participates
get there
in it they
because
let them
there's
shoot
too
them
much
off.
traffic.
What?
I want to throw out.
I tried to get there once, there was so much traffic, I couldn't make it
He
in
gave
time.
up. Mr. Rivera?
I want to throw out a number, and I want to start with 5,000.
Five, I got 5. Do I hear 4? 4? How about 6?
Usually it goes up when they,
You always go high and low, don't you?
Is 5,000 acceptable to everybody?
How do we even know what 5,000 buys?
What's it gonna buy us?
What's that
Well,
relative to?
All right, for example, in this case, then the Maricopa County or the Water District itself would owe us, what, $3,000, $3,500?
The rest of, the majority of these are well under that.
Yeah,
So
most
none
of them are
these-
under that, so
So out of that,
That
you
doesn't
know,
accomplish a lot.
no. All the private promoters would still not have to pay.
Go ahead.
I want to throw out another idea. I'm open to having this conversation. I know there's events throughout the city. One example of an event that I support in the downtown is the event put on by the Northwest Black History Committee. What they're looking for, and I could be wrong in this, is support from the city as far as police, fire, and trash services. I don't know if that's an angle that can be approached.
Well, last year, they got $2,001 in-kind support. How did we get 1? Never mind, I don't want to know. So, I mean, they got $2,000 worth of in-kind support. And that's outside promoter, according to the notes here. So they would, at the $5,000 point, it wouldn't cost them anything.
Okay.
But I guess the point is, we're not recovering anything for in-kind support, and we're still forking out $200,000, which is why I said 2,000, 2,500. Then you're going to get some money back from several of these things, as opposed to nothing from anybody.
well, 5,000 only affects a few, right?
Yeah, it'd be the 3rd of July thing. And do you want to do that, or do you want to see if we can continue the in-kind support at the level we do now, as long as they allow us to participate in it, because that's a private event, so they might tell us to go fly a kite. I mean, that would have to be negotiated.
I mean, they may do their own security, or?
Well, I mean, if we say we'll continue to provide the police for traffic control, as long as we get to participate in the event, they might say no.
In this specific case, in regards to the Northwest Black History Committee, one of the reasons I support it's community-wide, but also they put our logo, they market the event, so there's a lot of participation from the city of Peoria in the event. So this is not one of those where that nonprofit comes forward and says, give me support, but I don't want the city to be involved at any level. They have their logo and other ways of participating.
I agree. I think that if we're going to do in kind, that we have our branding on it and we have some participation.
So why don't we put that in the policy? Why don't we make that part of the policy? If the city is branded, if the city is shown in all of the marketing things, then that is how we can, that's our offset really for our in-kind.
Okay.
And do you want to put a limit then on those offsets, and anything over and above that comes to council? So anything really, really large, like say the 23,000, if you're going to do that, then you would just, we would talk about that separately, because it's really an exception to the rule.
Mayor and Council,
and it's a rare occurrence.
I apologize. We did just want to make one clarification. Should the council be interested in having our name on an event for in-kind support, Ms. Ranke just wanted to mention an exposure that we might have.
Thank you. With promoter-produced events, typically we don't get involved with how they manage it, coordinate it, and what they have in it. If we put our city logo on it, I think we would want to know what they're doing at all times throughout the event. Sometimes what happens is that they'll do something that we may not agree with, even though it may be, and it's generally at an outside area, Maricopa County. We don't control that either. So I think you just need to look at the exposure to the city if we want to do something like this. They are required to put in special events applications, and we do see the layout many times, but we don't see all the functions that are involved with something like that. So just keep that in mind, the exposure to the city, and what are we looking at to market ourselves with and for?
We would have some possible liabilities?
Yes, we could. I mean, depending on what they're doing out there, because we don't ask that high-level detail like we would go into if we're producing the event. A promoter can pretty much do what they want at that event, and we don't have really a say in it.
Brenda, don't we do that with a lot of events? We sponsor dinners. We don't know what's going to go on in the dinner.
That would be a promoter-produced event, and you bet we don't ask what they are doing at that type of function. If it is our event, a community event or a signature event, we fully control that. We lead it, even though we may have an outside promoter like a PA3, they're actually doing the majority of the work for us. In a situation of Fiesta, we know you're using our facilities, but we don't ask everything that goes on with that event.
Okay. But the point that I was trying to make is that with the logo and sponsorships, we sponsor a lot of events, dinners, where difficult issues are discussed. So there's always that liability of putting our name on there and being associated with an event.
Well, yeah, a lot of times what happens too is that they will give us some of their stuff so that we can look at what they're doing. A dinner is really pretty simple. And honestly, with a dinner like that, a lot of us are on the boards, so we know what they're doing with something like that.
Thank you.
And you just have to keep in mind, a bigger event is, and it's an outside promoter, the more exposure the city would have if we say we're going to market with them.
So the short version here is on the July 3rd thing. If it goes awry and we have an explosion like we had at the stadium several years ago
Right.
out there, then we get some of the bad publicity because we've tied ourselves to
Right.
that. Whereas if it happened
And-
this last year, it's Maricopa County's problem. It's not
Right.
ours.
And we could be sued, right?
I guess so. So we're right back where we started. Which is why I suggested approving a given sum for this, and we can cut it up later.
Do we want to do 3,000 maybe?
For max contribution before we charge them,
For us, yeah, our max
For
in
in-kind.
kind.
for in-kind?
It seems most fall under that, though we're not including the council-sponsored ones.
No, this doesn't apply to the.
It's just strictly
P3.
outside promotion.
Yeah,
And most of them seem to fall under that anyways.
most are under 3, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Guerrero?
Mr. Ames, would you be open to a compromise with 4,000? Started with
My
5,000.
compromise would be 2,500.
Well, this doesn't affect the one you're doing, right?
Yes, but it does affect other events that,
Can you tell us about some of those?
the Northwest Black History Committee event.
Does that go beyond 3,000?
No, it was 2,000 last year,
Yeah.
according to the sheet.
And, well, I suppose we could waive if we wanted to, right, for a particular event if we, yeah? Would that take a council vote, or it could be a discretion of the staff?
Well, if you create a policy that has a bright line threshold, a dollar amount, then that's what we're going to manage too. If you set it up so that promoters or event sponsors can come to the council and ask for money above that threshold, they will.
And that also opens up a can of worms where we could be
Well,
picking
we
and
need
choosing.
more time.
Pardon? Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I just went from an administrative standpoint, that's the way it would work. I mean, we would set, if you, and I think this is as difficult as this discussion is, I think it's important because we're getting to some clarity about how we're going to fund these and sponsor and support these events. But whatever threshold you make, either I think you want to make that threshold rather firm, or just understand that various event sponsors and promoters and folks putting these things on are going to come to you and request additional funding above that level.
Okay, so we could set it, say, $3,000, which was his suggestion, with the provision that number is reviewed every year. So as inflation comes through and time goes by, if you want to, you could raise the amount of in-kind that we provide. Ms. Carla?
What if, in addition to the $3,000, instead of, if it's going to be larger than that, it comes before the full council and we vote on it, what if it was over 3,000, it would go to the council member for that district, and they could determine if they wanted to let it go above, and if so, they would pay for it out of district funds. So it would come out of discretionary funds for that particular district. So if it was, if it was 3,001, you would pay $1 out of district
We
funds.
give some district funds to some of these events anyway.
Well,
Well,
I
this
was
is
just a $3,000
this.
limit, and let's say that comes in at 3,500, the promoter would pay the 500. But if it was in your district and you decided you really support this thing, you could pay that 500 on behalf of the promoter out of your district funds.
I like that.
And then we would review that number every year.
Yeah, I think that's good. Then it, if for whatever reason the number's too low or there's leftover money, you can change the threshold or change the process. If you found it to be too cumbersome after a year, for whatever reason, we can change it.
Is everybody sort of comfortable with
And
that?
you could bring that to the
Potential
council
policy?
as you
Absolutely.
notice.
Sure, you bet.
So you'll bring something like that back to
All
us. So we can formalize
Okay,
it.
so I have one more question
We
though
can't
with
vote on
that regard.
today.
Like the 3rd of July event, that's happening without my knowledge. So who is knowledgeable about this in advance? Who is the one who is going to say, we're not going to spend $8,000 on this event? Who does that come through?
Well, Mayor and Council, as I understand it, if you're wanting to get a sense of all of these in-kind items, we would likely bring that forward to you in the budget process to try and collect as many as we could, and they could be discussed at one time. But yes, during the year, you will have these items that do surface from time to time, and city staff would then, I believe, reach out to the district or the council member at that time.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, the question was really, how do we know what that amount is, right? In advance for the 3rd of July event? How do we know that?
In this case, I mean, we're talking about public safety on a traffic,
Right.
on one of our streets that we normally
Right.
police. So how uncustomary is it for us to say to our traffic control, don't go out there tonight,
Right.
we have that option in advance?
And that's the issue. I mean, when an event occurs in our city, whether we're a sponsor or supporter or not, there is a public safety response obligation that we have. And so, we have a fireboat and staff at the lake, of course, on the fire EMS side. And our police are going to respond to those kinds of problems.
Right.
So, there is absolutely an obligation that we have, right, Chief? I mean, yeah. So, I mean, we can make arrangements with them where they might say the basic traffic control is done by sheriff's office personnel or other agencies, I presume. But at the end of the day, if there's a problem, we're going to be there.
We're going to go.
Yeah,
And all
right.
summer long, I think that we have heightened coverage in that area because State Route 74 becomes very, very busy with a lot of accidents. So I'm not sure we can really attribute all of this to an event kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to be able to decipher that somehow.
Can I help out for a little bit here? We actually have processes in place to take care of promoters that want to request services from the city. We have a temporary use permit if it's on private land, privately owned, and then we have a special events process if it's on publicly owned land. So they have to fill out the forms for us so that we know what is going on and what they are requesting.
So that would mean then this $8,500 is not our normal traffic control on State Route 74 or response to a wreck.
That is over and
Okay,
above what the
good.
services are already required out there.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad to know that. Okay.
Good. I'm sorry.
On our events.
No, this is only the promoter stuff
Okay.
that we're talking about. Go ahead, Bill.
I have a question for Councilmember Edwards. On the P83 party, that appears right now to be attached to the P83 development. If the P83 development goes south, do you still see that party as being part of your district?
Yes.
Okay. I was
Yes.
just curious.
I'd like to again address the chess championship.
Working now independently.
I really like this event, but it's very, very expensive for a very, very small attendance. And I'm wondering if we would consider, and again, not just that event, but looking at all of these, events that we put money into, not necessarily promoter, I guess, but events that we put money into and talk about whether they are all events we want to keep.
Okay, do you have a suggestion for something you would like to eliminate?
We went dark here.
Huh?
It is on this, I apologize for the attendance, it will be behind this.
Are you suggesting on the chess thing that we knock it down, they can't bring the celebrity in? They can start the tournament?
No, I'm not suggesting any kind of edits to it because I don't know enough about that event to suggest edits to it. All I'm saying is it's very expensive for the amount of attendance we have. That's all. I'm just looking at it strictly from a numbers point of view and asking the council if they want to take that same look at other things from a numbers point of view on this spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think that we should. If there's low attendance, we can so identify that, but we may still have want it for some other reasons, right? But I think we should start with attendance, yes.
Well, she's brought up the chess.
Yeah, I think that's,
Chess champion, whatever.
I think that's one that our judge has worked with to bring us a chess championship in the past, and this time he wants to bring a super chess player, and I think the additional expense is primarily that.
Yeah, it's to bring the name chess player. And that's what the real expense is, because I think it's done at the high
Because
school.
he's done it in the past, but
Yeah.
it's much lower.
Yeah. And I guess the question staff is asking of us is, do we want to pick that up as a formal event for the city? Okay. At the $48,000 funding level.
Right. Should the council see fit to undertake in the chess champion simulation activity, that we estimated that approximate cost net would be about $48,600. It is not budgeted at this point.
Carla?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I see this chess thing all the time, and I don't know the first thing about chess.
You should
So
go.
I'm not in favor of it. I just soon see it deleted myself and use that money for someplace else, because I like to have an event in my area, and we could probably use some of that money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We're just dealing with the chess thing right now.
I agree with Carlo.
You agree with Carl?
That's fine.
So no, that's not going to be an ongoing, fully funded event. What else do we have here? What's Northern Peoria event?
It doesn't exist at this point, since we have no Northern Peoria events.
I know, but it's up here right now.
I know,
Talk
so-
about whether we're going to fund it.
Yeah, would you like to fund a Northern Peoria event?
Do we have
Council?
any idea what it would be?
Mr. Sefton can kind of speak to maybe one of the concepts there.
Yeah, we've
Again-
given this some thought. We think this is, as we've talked about in terms of geographic equity, something that makes sense in terms of the growth of the city of the north.
Right. Again, conceptually and scale as presented here, we're close to the P83 party. The ideas are not nailed down. We're in aggressive negotiations, meeting with property owners and other property in the northern area, where we feel confident that within this next fiscal year, we'll be able to produce and to collaborate with a number of partners to put on a significant event.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
You
And I
mean
fully support it.
Something like P83 of that magnitude? Do
Potentially.
you think it would be a rock concert?
Possibly different. Again, the details this concept builds
Ballet
the
will
capacity. A ballet in the grass or in the desert. There's so many different ways to put a scale together. If elected, if this is a preference, this gives us the capacity to further detail, identify the venue, identify the partners, and what goes into an event. So there's still a lot of things to consider, but we've been very optimistic and very able to make some great connections, but those details aren't nailed down. And if that's the decision or the direction from council, we feel we can deliver.
Do you have a sense of where the actual location would be?
We've got a number of locations that I'm not prepared to divulge at the moment, but it
Indoor,
is north.
They'd be outdoor? You're thinking outdoor again?
Actually, both outdoor, indoor. We're really looking at a lot of different, again, the venue determines what we can do and how effective we can be at having, again, the scalability of the crowd.
And when are you, what month are you looking at? I would think we'd want to do it in, not too close to these other larger
Exactly.
events.
And again, as I stressed earlier in the presentation, that our challenge with staffing and support to do these, we would be looking towards the fall, early end of the year as an ideal, but it could be, because of logistics, pushed off before the end of next fiscal year. So it's a matter of placeholder dollars. It's a matter of being very creative and aligning those partners. We're at a good point, but we've got some details to work out, and we do need your direction on whether it's appropriate to pursue.
Yeah, I have a kind of a question to help me out here. The net estimated cost for P83, which is one I know about and I've been at, what is the cost to the city? What do we do for that? 54,000 there.
Right, the 54,000 is everything within the event, from logistics, fence, stage, promoter, the support, the entertainment. So really, this is the city taking the lead as the promoter. The logistics are all there, the rides, the mechanical bull riding, all of those entertainment value pieces are in this estimated net cost of the event.
Okay. But P83 did have an outside promoter as well.
Wait a minute, I don't want to discuss P83, we're on this thing.
No, I'm trying to get an idea of what work the city does.
Well, he's telling you that it's so early, they don't know what they're going to do yet.
No, they do for P83.
No, I'm not talking about P83, Ron, we're talking about the Northern Peoria event.
I know that. I'm trying to get a
I'm trying to get you to stay on
reference.
topic.
it's lined out what the city does for
Mr. Edwards.
P83 on this.
John, on your northern event, I know you have some ideas and, you're still kicking some stuff around. May I suggest doing, since we want to do an outdoor event in the fall, tying it into either a run, some kind of a K run or, and/or bicycling as well? Because we have a lot of people that are using our trails, we're promoting our trails, and what better use is to, have some event that we can promote those.
We actually have in the operations budget a number of runs planned. We've we recognize the value of the running crowd, bicycling as well, and putting on those events. They're a hungry population for activities, and they're great family events. We're helping to implement great active lifestyle. We're even creating tomorrow's runners with our cross country program. So there's a lot going in there. From a special event, those are excellent components to an overall activity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rivero suggested Oktoberfest, which I love. I think that's a great idea. But the fact is there's a lot of possibilities out there, and they're still determining those. So the thing is, do we want to commit some money to Northern Peoria? That's the question on the table here.
Well, actually, yeah, the Northern Peoria event for what, 41.8? Mr. Tennant?
I want to be real clear. I know the 41.8 is just a placeholder, but it could be more than one event?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, depending upon the scale, so it's a matter of all the logistics that go into the event planning piece and what those costs would ultimately be.
Tentatively, the budget was estimated with it being a little larger signature events, similar to a P83, but absolutely we will accept your direction on this.
And this is including revenue offsets, right? I mean,
Yes.
P83 is 109,000 with 55,000 in revenue offsets. So there is that same possibility.
So far, we said yes to the P83, no to the chess. Now, Northern Peoria event, do we want to authorize that to go into the budget? Mr. Ames?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to, now there's quite an offset to the P83. There could be an offset here, then how does that, we don't actually spend that much money then, right?
Mr. Ames, in regard to an offset for the Northern Peoria event, is that the question?
Yeah.
That would be what we estimate would include the offset. The net cost would be approximately that 41,000.
Okay, but when I look at P83 here, I
The
see a negative net cost, actually.
Yeah, I should mention the P83 party. In last year, the estimated total cost was $109,000. However, there's about $55,000 of revenue offset for a total net cost of $54,000.
okay.
And so, likewise, similar
So you're
in
looking
concept
after
would be
what-
that.
This would be the cost after the offset to the city.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Did you have something you want to say, Kenny? Okay. Yes or no on the Northern Peoria?
Sure.
Yes.
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 I didn't say anything, but it's okay.
You're like me, by then it didn't matter.
We could have a parade from there down to,
I guess we have to decide on a title too. Is this Fiestas Patrias or Fiestas Peoria? Fiestas Peoria, 40,000.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
I have a comment, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, the 40,000 is for what it would cost staff to run the event. What I'm asking the council for is the in-kind support for the event, the fire, police, the basic services for the event. That's the support I'm looking for.
Is that the 12,248 on our list?
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, you're saying that rather than the 40 that they're recommending, it'd only be 12, based on last year.
Yeah, based on last year.
But we'd authorize 40, up to 40.
No. We would authorize what he's asking for.
Just
Well,
in-kind.
Yes.
something close to it. I don't know what the answer is, but it's not 40.
It's like 20 or.
Or, if we put in a number, 15, something like that,
Let's put it at 20.
20?
Yeah.
20, all right?
and that's all in kind, you're
Yes,
just
up to
talking about.
20. We might not need to use the 20, so up to.
Yeah, okay. That's up to 20.
40, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 20 instead of
And it's
40.
all going to be in kind.
Keep it safe, a family affair? I'm not familiar with that one at all.
Yeah, this was a partnership with St. Joseph's held right off of Deer Valley and west of the river at
77th.
77th. Great parking lot event, a lot of different activities going on, police, fire, St. Joseph's. There were a lot of really good informative information. Child safety seat,
Okay. Now I remember.
skull protector for the kids riding bikes. A lot of great stuff. Keeping it safe.
So
Do we want to authorize that?
what kind of attendance do we get at this? That's one of the things we were going to consider.
It was 1,000 last year as a first-time event.
And these are primarily parents with kids for
Families.
seats, seat belt,
Right.
strapping in the kids.
Plenty of activities as well. It was a fun time.
Authorize it? Yes, no, maybe?
So
Check with me
this
later.
would be an ongoing one, is what we're saying here.
This would still be the one-time funding.
Oh, it's one time, not
Yes.
ongoing.
Yeah, all these are one time.
A one time, okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
This is one of the very few times when we get a chance to bring city services to the northern part of the city. And, just having it the first time last year is a little bit shameful, but even questioning whether we should do it on a regular basis, it's a small amount of money, and a lot of people were attracted to it, and I'm sure even with that being the first time, a lot more people will come. I think that it's fair to bring more services to the people. We get these kind of things with the GAIN event and a lot of other events like that happen in the middle and the southern portion of the city. So yes, I support this.
I was going to say, why don't you quit where you're ahead?
Yeah.
You got the vote.
I just want to say why.
Yeah, the Sustainability Film Series.
Is this one we've,
Oceans,
some of us
Dolores.
put on our calendar, so it's more than one, it's four of them, is that right?
It's three.
Correct. This was three different events. Again, an opportunity to have at different venues throughout the city. This is one of those events where we're really focusing on getting a message out at the same time as creating a fun experience for the families.
Okay, and so everybody understands one's at Sunrise Pool, one's at the main Sunrise Library, and one in Centennial Plaza.
These are movies during the middle of a weekday?
Saturdays.
On Saturdays?
And you're going to do more than just the movie, right? You're going to have,
Exactly. More educational, a lot of booths, a lot of information available to families to help provide that sustainability message.
and
Big draws the film.
the movie's free, right?
Correct.
Right. I remember. Yes? Yes, yes, yes.
It's one time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
This
right.
is one time.
Reevaluate.
That was good, too. What else do you need from us on this?
One item of clarification, if I may, and I apologize, is in regard to the P83 party, I would like to get a little bit of clarification on that. The way this has been undertaken in the past, for example, in the last years, it was a city-sponsored event, largely organized by a promoter. I just wanted to clarify, are you looking for this, Mr. Edwards, to continue to be a city-supported event, or something that would have outside contributions similar to what we had heard for Fiesta Peoria?
Well, I envision doing it with an outside promoter. We still have some talks to go through. I know we have a discussion with a promoter, is it the end of this month or beginning of May? So we haven't worked out those logistics, but I'm looking at having an outside promoter.
So at this point, we will tentatively estimate that the city's contribution, though, will be the amount as identified here, that will continue with the city's support for that? Is that correct?
Yeah, the 54.
All right,
As
thank
of
you.
right now, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And it's still going to be a one-time, but we'll look at it as possible ongoing next year.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a suggestion that since we're not going to do the chess club, that we take some of that money and funnel it into the Bravo Peoria and beef up that event a little bit. It's a great location. I think a lot of people want to come to it, but I see it dwindling as time goes on, even though it's fairly new. We've only had a couple years in a row, but it's a book sale, basically, and there's a few people who put up some vendor tents, but I think we can do so much more with that. And I would like to suggest we beef up Bravo Peoria.
Well, we'll deal with this first. Okay, so I'll hold on for you. How much?
Is
Did you
that,
guys hear me?
I have a question. This 200, are we looking at for things beyond special events? This is one-time money, could be used for
What?
other things too, couldn't it?
If I may,
Wait,
yes,
wait a minute.
Councilmember, that is correct. Tentatively, we had identified that there was about $250,000 that was available on a one-time basis. Of that amount, we had anticipated about $200,000 one-time toward special events, but absolutely, that could be applied toward any general government purpose.
Yeah, and when we're doing the budget wrap-up at the end of the day, too, there've been a couple of additional requests that the council's made across the session, so we'll be doing the arithmetic on that, Councilmember Ames.
Yeah, no, I was at Bravo. I thought there were a lot of people there. I thought it was well done. I don't know what else you would do. The special things the show was put on for the kids, I think, was the kind of premier attraction there.
That's why we have people who know how to put on events, and
Yeah.
we're very happy for
Right,
that.
and so, yeah,
To get us back on track here, right now, the ongoing thing is roughly $2,000. Her suggestion is that some of the 20 we've saved from the chess and from Fiestas Peoria, she wants to beef up or put more money into the Bravo Peoria. How much?
That's weird.
10,000.
10,000.
Agreed.
What was that?
That was my
your
comment,
Okay.
yeah.
So add 10,000 to
Thank you.
Bravo Peoria.
I would rather look at some things outside of events here when we get to those later.
Okay? Anybody else?
What are we talking?
Would you like
Adding $10,000 to the Bravo Peoria celebration.
The book sale.
I would say okay, but I got something I'd like to put on here before I do that.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that. I'm going to do
All right.
these things one at a time. Okay, so adding 10 to Bravo Peoria, yes or no?
Yes.
Add 10. You're up.
Yeah. I'm a great believer in a lot of events. This way here, I don't know why those two guys are laughing, but it's okay. You get to meet a lot of people in the community, people that you've never seen before. People will come up to you and talk to you. You know, when I was at the event last week, I was introduced over at Theater Works, and there was a lot of people there. And when he introduced me, a lot of people looked at it and says, "Oh, that's Councilman Leone." So I don't even know who they were. So I think it's a great event where you can meet a lot of people. Farmers Market is the same way, where you meet a lot of people. So I'm suggesting that I talked to Josette and I talked to JP quite a while ago about having some kind of event at Country Meadows. So this is, I was looking at if we have enough money, like she wants to put $10,000 in to the Bravo, if we can take some of that money and put it in Country Meadows and see what I could do with it. I was going to talk to John about it. So that would be my suggestion on this list here.
Okay, so essentially, I assume that would be one of the smaller events, the community kind of thing? Yes. Okay. That's his suggestion. Questions or comments, Bill?
Yeah, Councilmember Leone, I'd just like to know, what type of event are you looking for?
I don't know yet. I'm just thinking about it. I was talking about it. It might be the same kind of event that Tony put on over at, where did you have that place?
Barney Park.
Ronnie Park. But we don't know yet. We could have music and everything.
Councilmember Leone, I support you. What are your thoughts of how much to set aside?
How much what?
How much would you like to set aside for that?
What did the Varney Park thing cost?
Well,
I don't remember.
I don't know, about maybe what? 15,000? I don't know. I'm just trying to,
No,
I'm just,
we're
all
not talking a major event here, we're talking a smaller.
right, so 10,000?
Mayor
I'm
and
just throwing
Council.
event figures out.
Mayor and Council, if we may, there was a question, an inquiry by Council earlier this week in regard to an event that is more localized, that would be at a neighborhood park. Perhaps we could give you some information of what that would entail and what you would receive for that funding?
Okay. Or how much are those events guesstimated at?
I'm going to stall as Mr. Sefton grabs that information.
Great stall, Jeff, thank you. from that request, we did talk about and threw together some projects and some estimates. This was provided, I believe, yesterday in memo format, and created sort of different levels of a neighborhood park program. Level 1 would basically be the basic party in the park, which would include interactive areas that are inflatables, are city-owned inflatables, face painting, chalk art, sports equipment, getting out there with the parachutes, and having a real old-fashioned fun time in the park. Booths, partners that could come out, again, focusing on education. Police and fire are always there, have our back, and neighborhood resources as a way to make those connections. Food could be one of those variables as well. We estimate that basic level cost to be about $5,600 without any partnerships or cost offsets. For something like a movie in the park or adding music or a higher level art, we would estimate about $7,000 per event. Again, I identified a handful of areas that includes good marketing. It includes some printing for some brochures and things. So we can tighten that back up a little bit down to around $3,500 or $4,100 on an ongoing or an expense standpoint when we find partners out there, sponsorships, other funding opportunities as well.
So you want to set aside 7? Is what we said?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Everybody okay with that? Mr. Ames?
Well, since this is coming up, there is not an event in the Palo Verde district.
Okay, so,
I would like a similar one in the Palo Verde district then. So that would be 2 at that level.
It'd be 14. Everybody all right with that?
okay, I'm all right with it as long as we're still keeping in mind equity. Equity, we already have the majority of our events are in the middle and southern portion of our city. So if we add more events to the middle and southern portion of our city, are we accomplishing our goal of serving all of our citizens? Mr. Ames, I guess I'll ask you that question.
Well, there isn't an event in the Palo Verde district.
That's not
so-
my question.
Yeah.
My question is, are we serving all of the citizens in all areas of our city equitably?
I think we are. You asked a question, I gave you an answer.
Definitely not, you said?
I think we are right now, right?
No, because a lot of
We
people,
add more.
a lot of people in Country Meadows, won't come all the way downtown Peoria. They've been asking me, why can't we have something up there? This is why I brought up about 2-3 years ago with JP. Why can't we something over here in Country Meadows? It's only about 9 or 10 acres, isn't it? We can have you can have a 5K run over there as a runner. I think it'd be a good idea, and then you can have a bike race, and then so you can have the same thing we have every place else. You want something up north, I want something way up south. That's all there is to it.
Well,
You get yours, I get mine.
There are
you don't
6
get yours, I don't
districts,
get mine.
and 7,000 a district is 42, at least it used to be. I assume math still holds. At my age, I'm not sure. Do you want to do that then? We'll just assign 1 to each district?
No.
No? Yes, no? Why not?
There's already
I'm
some.
not
They're
in my-
they're talking about equity now.
I'm talking about my district.
You don't need one, okay. 5. So we're down to 35. Do I hear 30? Wait, no, never mind.
What?
Somebody? Yes, no, maybe, forget it?
But
Well,
I'm
I-
not sure what we've added.
I couldn't quite understand you, Bob, I'm sorry.
No, what I'm saying is that what you're talking about, the $7,000 for an event in your district.
Right.
Well, should we set aside $7,000 for each district to have an event?
I would agree to that. I think every district should have an event.
Except for Tony's, he doesn't want one.
No, Tony don't need one.
Yes.
No,
Tony has plenty.
John don't even need it, he's got one
83.
already, haven't you? So you get 2 right there,
I don't need one.
Okay.
unless you want to put one up
If somebody wants them.
in Antenna Lakes.
You'll take one? You'll take one? You want one? You want one? 4.
How about you?
I just want to go home.
He takes them all.
That's right. I just want to go play golf or something. Okay. Mr. Rivero, you're up.
Yeah, may I make a further comment about that, though? I would like to see what's possible. Maybe it wouldn't be that beneficial. And I think everyone would want to look at what it's going to be, right?
Yeah, well, it's authorized, and you can work out with them.
And we can
what
decide
kind of
not
deal
to
you
do
wanna
it as
Or
well.
not. Right.
Yeah, Okay.
But at least the financing is there, should you decide to proceed with that event. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, I have the Fiesta Peoria, that's clear, but in regards to the other event that I'm working on, Cinco de Mayo, I would like the council to give consideration to same approach that I'm taking with Fiesta Peoria, which is covering the in-kind support.
Okay.
We haven't done it.
So looking for,
Yeah, so I'm thinking about 10. Okay, so as an estimate, I'm thinking the request would be around 10,000 in-kind.
around 10. Okay, I found it.
Where is it?
Cinco de Mayo celebration and book sale?
No, that's something different.
Oh. Why is it? Why do we have a Cinco de Mayo in books?
Well, what was the in-kind last year on that?
Where is it?
Oh.
Oh, that's, so it's
No wonder
not
I
on
can't
this
find it.
list? That's why.
Okay,
looking
I'm with you now, okay, I get it. So what you want to do is you want to add 10,000 for Cinco de Mayo?
Yes, in-kind.
That'd be in-kind? So that would depend on how much in-kind you need?
Yes.
Okay,
It would be
up to 10,
up to.
up to 10.
I'm fine with that.
Yep. Yep. I'm good with that. Do it. Do we have any other ones we want to adjust? Oh, Carla.
Now, I don't want anything. I think John might have to hire 10 more people for all these events.
No, we'll just give him a better title. That's all. We don't have to give him a raise. Anything else in special events? Okay, can we recap this? The recap would be $3,000, anything over that to a promotional event that's non-city participant is the max. After that, they pay the difference for in-kind. We get a hot wash result after every event. Every major events, not,
Yes.
yeah. Everybody good with that? Go ahead.
Yeah, do we have to separately vote on that at some point, or can we just as part of the budget?
They'll have to bring it back as a policy.
Yeah, we will. We'll bring, obviously, the budget allocation decisions you just made will be part of the budget, but we'll bring back a companion item that you can vote on that memorializes the policy aspects of this, too.
The $3,000 cap now, and then we'll review every year, as we were discussing.
Good.
That has to come back to us for a formal action.
Yeah, that's what I assumed,
Yeah, but that was the agreement here today, right? Okay.
Well, that
Is there
was-
anything else with this? You need anything else on this?
No, and we really appreciate the time and clarity that we have now. I mean, it's been hard and time-consuming for you, but it'll be beneficial for us going forward, I assure you.
I'm glad somebody thought that was fun.
Thank you.
All right, why don't we take a break, and we'll resume at 11? Okay?